Hey guys, in today's video, we're going over a beginner's guide on how to get started programming your HX Stomp and your HX Stomp XL. So this video is just going to be if you're ready to start programming your HX Stomp, if you either are brand new to it or you've just started using it and you're running into roadblocks about how to program it. So this video will definitely help you out if you're new to it or you're stuck on something, and I might be able to help you out with this. So I do have timestamps down below if you need to find something specific that you're looking for. If you're brand new or generally new or just somewhat stuck, I do recommend watching the full video because it'll help you out and you might miss something that you didn't know that you needed to know. So before we get started, I post videos like this all the time, stuff on wireless, Helix, HX Stomp, Midi, programming, in-ear monitors, finding cheap stuff for musicians on Amazon, stuff like that. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this in the future, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to ring the bell to be notified when I put out new videos, and hitting the thumbs up button is a free way to support the channel. All right, let's get started with programming your HX Stomp. So right off the bat, we're going to go over kind of just, the inputs and stuff like that and all kind of the boring stuff. It's valuable to know for sure. So up here on the top, you can see how much I use this thing because it's kind of already faded. I'm going to go over this somewhat fast. I just want you to be aware what the inputs and the outputs are because it's going to be important for programming your HX Stomp. But you have your inputs, so usually you just go in here for your guitar. You have two inputs if you're going to do a stereo thing. And then you have outputs. You can either do mono output, which is usually how I do it, or stereo outputs, up to you. You do have a USB up here, so you can actually record direct into like a computer using USB, which is pretty awesome. This is an expression pedal input. You can use something like this and get two extra little buttons out of it, or you can use, an expression pedal for wah and volume and stuff like that. I will show you how to assign that here in a little bit. So on this side, we have MIDI. So you have in and out / through if you know how to do MIDI programming. I have done videos on how to do that. I'm not really going to go over MIDI in this video. That's a little more advanced, but I do have videos on that. And you do have a headphone out as well if you want to practice with headphones. On the other side, you do have send and return ports. So you can use this with other pedals and you can program it in the chains. And that is also something that I'm going to show you how to set up. But this is just kind of the ins and outs on the HX Stomp. So the first thing I recommend doing is using this knob up here and just scrolling through different factory presets. These are some of mine that I've programmed. But when you get to, DIR, and stuff like that, just go through some of the presets and just listen to them and play through them. That's the first thing that I would do. You can also push this button right here and it'll bring this up so you can scroll if you are looking for a very specific one. You like that one, so you can select it instead of having to scroll through it like this. I mean, most of you know how to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a new preset. I'm going to dim the screen a little bit so that it's easier to see what's going on. All right, so basically what here is, this is your main joystick right up here. And you can see when I twist it, you can see that moving around. So this is your input. This is your signal chain right here. You have your input, which comes in through the input on the HX Stomp and then goes out here to the output. So just in the same way when you have a pedal board, this is your first pedal all the way to your last pedal. So what we're going to do is we're going to start adding pedals. So what you're going to do is you're going to push this button right here and it's going to bring up all these different options of what you can add. So you can add something favorites. You can say favorites. Distortion, do you want something with dynamic, something with EQ, modulation, delay, reverb, pitch, synth, filter, wah, amp and cab, all of those separate if you do want separate, impulse response, volume pan, using that send and return or the looper. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an amp and a cab, and I'm going to select it by pushing this button right here. Do I want a guitar or a bass? I'm going to do guitar. And then I have all these different options of which ones I can add. So I personally really like the Soldano and the ones based off of the PRS. Those are some of my favorite amps in here. So I'm going to do the one based off the PRS. And there we go. Now I have an amp and a cab as that first block. Swipe over. Now I'm on the second one. What do I want to add next? I'm going to push this button, scroll down. I want to add a compressor. Are you doing it in mono or stereo? That's up to you. I mostly run this in mono, so I'm going to choose mono. And then you have all these different types of dynamic type of things. I'm looking for a compressor, so I'm going to use the Deluxe Comp. Scroll over. Next one, let's say I want a modulation. I'm going to use, a tremolo effect. And then next one, I want a delay. So I'm going to select a delay. I really like the transistor tape personally. And then a reverb. Let's go to the next one. I'm going to do just an EQ. And then the last one, I'm going to put a hard gate, or something like that. So now I have 8 different pedals in my chain. Goes into the input, and then goes into the amp, and then to the compressor, then the tremolo, then the tape delay, then the plate reverb, EQ, a boost, and then a hard gate. That's the way I have it set up. And then it goes out the out port. But let's say I don't like the order of this. You know, you'll hear as you're programming this, the order of it definitely matters. Let's say I want the compressor to go in before the amp, which often I do. You're going to push this action button right here, and you see how it's going to lift it up. Now I can move it around wherever I want. So I can put the amp at the end if I like, but I'm going to put it just second. I'm going to push action again, and now it's second in place. Let's say I want the boost to be before the EQ. Now the boost is before the EQ, or again, I push action, I can move it over and place it wherever I would like. So that's basically just general assigning new presets and assigning blocks. Okay, so that's fun and everything. You have all the general settings in here. But now, you know, what if you wanted to change some of the settings? So say you like the amp, but you want to change the drive and you want to change everything else. And this is where you start to do that. So you're going to use your joystick and you're going to select which effect you want to change. So I'm going to choose the amp, and then you have drive, bass, and mid, and those are going to be changed by these knobs right here. So I'm going to start turning down the drive. I'd like a little more bass and a little more mids. And then using this page button, I can switch over to the next page, and I can start changing everything else. And you can see this little bar up here at the top. You can see how many pages of stuff I have in this one. You have so many different options in here. Whereas like on the tremolo, I just have 2 pages, and that's it. But the amp settings have a ton of them. So I'm going to scroll over. I would like less treble, a little more presence. The volume's a little hot, so I'm going to turn that down. Turn up the master. And then I'm going to get to the cabinet. And on the cabinet, I want to change the mic type. I want to set it just to a standard 57. Or you can set it to, you know, a ribbon mic or a condenser mic. What's the distance that you want the microphone to be from the imaginary cabinet? You can do a low cut. So I want to cut everything below 100 hertz. Go over high cut. I want to cut everything above 7.5. Turn up the volume and stuff like that. So now I'm happy with how the amp sounds, but I want the tremolo to be a little bit different. It's too intense, so I'm going to turn the intensity down. I want to change the wave type to a square wave or something like that. And I'm going to turn it up a little bit because it's a little quiet, right? Scrolling over to the delay. It's feeding back way too long, so I want it just to be at like 30. Turn the mix up to about 50, and so on and so forth. Reverb, you know, I want it to decay a lot longer, so on and so forth. Basically, it's like, you know, changing any pedal. Each pedal has like a little knob that you change for different settings, mix, decay, whatever. You're going to do the same thing in here. So that's how you can start programming individual patches to be whatever you would like them to be. Say you're like, oh, I don't really like what happened to that. You can push the button on the effect that you want to set back and watch what happens. Drive. When I push that, it goes back to the default settings, which is 6. When I push it on the bass, it'll go back to the default settings, which is 4.3, and back to the default settings for the mids, which is pretty nice. So something else you can do, let's say on the delay or something like that, let's say you're not happy with the delay. You can push this button, and it'll get you back, and you can try different delay types. So let's say you just want just a simple delay instead. You can try that. Or you don't like that, so push the button again, and let's say you want a reverse delay. The other option that you have, you can also not push the button and just scroll through on this joystick, and it'll scroll through the different ones. So you have a pitch echo, the tape delay, Cosmo echo, and stuff like that. So you can set these differently if you're not happy with it. Let's say you're not happy with the tremolo, you don't want it in there at all. You can push this action button, scroll over, and hit clear block. And now it's gone. And you can put something else in there instead. Say you wanted a distortion pedal, and I'm going to put this one in there, and you want your distortion instead. And then let's say there's an effect that you really like. Let's say you really like this delay. You can hit action, scroll over, and say add to favorites. And I'm just going to say add new favorite. And now, let me go ahead and just clear that block out. When you go to assign this, you can scroll to favorites, and now it's hidden here in the favorites with all the same settings that you have. So again, so you can set, you change the settings to whatever you like, and you're very happy with that. You would save that as a favorite, and it'll always remember these settings for that delay. Pretty nice. Okay, so now you know how to set up a preset and a patch and do it in the order that you would like and change the parameters of everything that you want in the HX Stomp so far. So far, so good. And I did want to mention one more thing really quick about programming delays specifically. So you have this option of either time, or if you push it, you can set it to a quarter note or eighth note or dotted eighth note or, half note and stuff like that. Most of the time you'll have it on quarter note or eighth note. Most of the time what you'll have is you'll have this button right here when you first set it up. This will be your tap tempo in your tuner. You can see that blinks, that's the tempo. So if I push it slower, now that's a quarter note. So it'll beep, beep, beep. So it'll beep at that speed, or if you hit it faster, that'll be the quarter note. And also, when you hold it, it does bring up the tuner. So now you've got all your blocks assigned in the order that you want, and you've changed the parameters. You've changed the gain, the tone, the level, whatever, to stuff that you're happy with. But now, how do you turn these things on and off? The way that you do it while you're programming is you push this button. So you see how the delay turns on and off, the plate turns on and off, EQ turns on and off, and so on and so forth. Can't really hit this. So how do you assign it to one of these buttons right here? So what we're going to do is you're going to hit the view button right here. And this gets you into kind of performance mode. So this is programming mode, and this is more performance mode. Now, in performance mode, you have different views that you can do. So in this one, this is stomp mode, which is what I'm going to show you how to do when we're going to assign blocks to these buttons right here. Scroll over, you have preset mode, so you can scroll up and down presets really quickly. So now I'm on preset 78, 79, so on and so forth. You scroll over, you get access to the 3 nearest presets, so 75, 76, and 77. Sometimes I might say, like 20 A, B, and C. This is just the way that I have it set up. There's a global setting that you do in there. But again, you get access to the 3 nearest ones. So only if you need like 3 specific patches and you just want to switch between those, you have that option. And then scrolling over, you have snapshot mode, which is one of the best ways to use the HX Stomp. And I did a whole video about how to program that. Definitely check out that video. I'm not going to be going over snapshots. I'll address it briefly in this video, but I'm not really going to go over that. So this is the mode that we want to be in, the stomp mode. So what you do, there's 2 different ways that you can do this. Let's say I want to turn on and off my distortion by this foot switch right here. First thing you can do is you can tap, just don't push, you just put your finger on the side or push your finger on the top of the button. And it'll say, do you want to assign this block to this foot switch? I'm going to say, okay. And now you can see it's like this orangish yellow color to match with the color of distortion in the helix. So you can see it turns off and on now. Next one over, I want to turn on and off my delay. Now it's assigned to this one. And then the last one I want to do is the reverb. So I want to assign this one to the reverb, and there you go. So now I have distortion, delay, and reverb all on. Now I have all 3 of them off. If you go back to, your performance view, you can actually see which ones they are. So now I have the delay on, delay off, plate on, and plate off. Do keep in mind you can assign multiple buttons to this as well. So say I want to turn off the EQ as well as the distortion. So let me turn these on actually so you can see. See how the 2 switches turn on and off? So the EQ and the distortion turn on and off. So, and you can assign another one too. So here's gain. So I'm going to have this one turn 3 buttons on and off. Make sense? And then this one will be delay, and this one will be reverb. So that's how you assign these buttons to whatever you would like. The other way that you can do it, you push these 2 buttons right here, and you hit this bypass assign. So when you do bypass assign, you can set it to certain switches. So foot switch 1, foot switch 2, or foot switch 3. It's set to foot switch 3. Now it turns it on and off. You do also get foot switch 4, 5, and expression pedal 1 and expression pedal 2. That's if you use the expression input, which again, I will show you how to set this up as well. So I'm going to set that to foot switch 3. Latching and momentary. When you set it to latching, that means it'll turn off when you press it and turn it back on when you press it. Momentary means when you hold it, it turns it off, and when you let go, it turns it back on. But most of the time, you're going to want latching. Scrolling over, you can do it. You can assign it with Midi. That's more advanced for this tutorial. But, if you do want to say, if it receives Midi CC 19, then it'll turn it on or off. And this is one of the coolest ones is that, so let me turn it off. If you scroll over to the end and you hit learn, and now what it's doing, it says it's waiting for a button to be pushed. And I'm going to push this button, and now it is assigned on and off. So if you don't, it's not hard to remember foot switch 1, 2, and 3. But if you have something, extra or a MIDI controller or something like that, and you just say, I want you to learn, and then push a button on your MIDI controller or your external foot switch, it'll figure out, oh, that's the button that you want to turn on and off the reverb. Pretty helpful. And then scrolling over, you do have this customized thing, so you can call this something else. So you could call it, I'm just going to call it slate right now. There's no reason for that, but just for simplicity. But now it says slate reverb instead of plate reverb. But that can be beneficial when you have like all three effects right here. So let me go back to this one over here, bypass the sign. So Footswitch 1, and now I'm going to call it, you know, multiple 3 is what it comes up as. So now it says multiple 3. You know, I can call that whatever I want. You know, if I only turn that on when it goes into the solo, I can call this solo or something like that. But that's how you start programming the individual buttons so that the pedals can be assigned to these buttons. All right, so now we are happy with what we have. We're really happy with this setup. How do we save a preset? So the way you do that is you push these two buttons together, and you can see it says save underneath here. Push those, and now you can, you know, move the joystick to name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call this new 2, just because. And you scroll over and you can delete or insert if you would like. Hit save, and now this is saved. So now when you come out and then go back to this preset, everything is saved as it is. So that's how you can save a preset. And this is set to preset 77. If you do want to move it, push this button, and you can see this reorder preset. When you start moving it, see how it moves new 2 up to 71 or something like that. But I'm going to put it back to where it was. I don't even remember where it was. It's 76 now. So I can set it right there. So if you do want to move it to a different slot, you have that option as well. That's basically it for programming it. I do want to show you just something really quick. Sometimes, you know, I have this one has 2 amps, and I'll show you how to do the split in a second. But then when I try to go set something else, everything is grayed out. That just means you've used too much DSP. So some of these amps use more DSP processing than other amps. Some of the effects, like if you use the poly pitch, that one takes up a ton of DSP. So you can't just do 8 blocks every time. You might run out of room. That's just something that you just have to keep in mind as you're programming. All right, so as far, I just showed you that, you know, that 2-path thing. So what you can do, actually, you can set up 2 different paths here. So the way that you do that, and I'm going to show you this, I like to have the reverb and the delay on 2 separate paths, but if you hit this action, and then you see this path, A or B, move it down, you have A or B, and now it splits off. So I'm going to assign that there. And now what happens is it goes through here, it'll hit the compressor, it'll hit the amp, it'll hit the distortion, and then it'll split the signal, and it'll hit the delay on one, and then it'll hit the reverb, EQ, gain, and hard gate after. And you can also go over, here's the split point. You can hit action to lift that up and move this to wherever you want. So now the reverb and the delays hit separately, which can be helpful. You're going to just have to trust your ear on that, to be honest. You're going to hear what sounds better when you do something like that. So like I said on that, this one has, I have 2 amps. I like the tone of this amp and this amp, but when I don't want this amp to go into this amp. I want both of them to be processed separately and then come together here and go out the output. So that can be really beneficial if you're doing 2 amps. You definitely will run out of DSP when you're running 2 amps. As you can see, I've got literally nothing else I can do. I have 2 amps, a delay, and a boost, and that is it. But that's beneficial about doing that path 2A type of thing, which is pretty cool. I use that quite a bit, especially if you're using 2 amps. You definitely want to do that. Okay, and then just a few things I want to show you about the input and the output. So when you go to the input right here, you do have a noise gate here at the beginning. If you turn that on, right on the very first thing, you have a noise gate, and you can set the threshold of when that noise gate kicks in, as well as set the decay. And the output over here, you can pan that specifically like one way. Do you want it to just come out the left, or do you want it to just come out the right of the output? Most of the time you want to just leave that centered, but you do have like a boost over here as well. So I don't technically need this gain right here. I could actually just set the boost right there if I wanted to. So remember how I did that path 2A type of thing? Path 2A and 2B. So you can go to this split point right here. So here's that split point. If I split that to path B, now it goes to a separate out. So right here, I can send this is the output to the left and the right output that I mentioned. So I can send that all the way to like a right output, and then this main output can go all the way to the left. So that is a way to get some stereo stuff if you want to do that. That's a little bit more advanced though. I'm just going to kind of reset that so we don't really have to worry about that. All right, so next up, as far as controller assignment. So remember when we push these 2 buttons, we have bypass assign. Bypass assign means it's going to just bypass the pedal. It's going to turn it off and turn it on. It's not going to do anything else. But controller assign is really cool. So let's say I'm going to unassign the plate reverb here really quick. But if I go to the delay pedal right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to controller assign. Now this is how you can set the pedal to change parameters in the HX Stomp. So what parameter would I like to control with this button right here? Let's do the mix. What controller, Footswitch 1, Footswitch 2, or Footswitch 3, which is the one that I want. And again, I can go over and hit learn and push the button and it'll do the same thing. Latch versus moment, we've already gone over that. But when you scroll over, what is the minimum value when the pedal is off and what is the maximum value when the pedal is on? So I'm going to set the minimum value to 20 and then the maximum value to 50, right? So now watch what happens to the mix when I push this button. It turns up to 50. When I turn it off, it turns down to 20. So I can assign this button to change the parameters in here. Now, with the HX Stomp, you definitely are limited with you only have the 3 buttons. That's why I recommend something like this. I did a whole review on this one, as well as on another one that's a little bit cheaper than this one. But basically, you have a TRS cable that goes in here and then goes in here. Now I have Footswitch 4 and 5. So I can go to controller assign. And now I have it set to Footswitch 4, right? So now this one changes that, right? You can also get an expression pedal. You can also assign that. So again, go to the mix. Let's say expression pedal 1. And then I say the minimum value is at 0 and the maximum value is at 100. So with your expression pedal, when it's all the way back like this, it's at 0. And when you push it all the way down, it's at 100. So that's the way you can program the parameters to be controlled either by a button or by an expression pedal, which is really helpful for assigning and controlling your HX Stomp. And keep in mind, you also can do this with Midi. So I can say Midi, if you do know how to program Midi, Midi CC 37 will change the mix and it'll set it from 0 to 100. I do have a video explaining Midi if you are interested in learning more about that, but I think it's a little more advanced for this tutorial. Just a few more things I wanted to show you here that might be valuable for starting to program. Pushing these 2 buttons. Command Center is too advanced for this video. I did a whole video breaking that down, but you can send commands from the HX Stomp to external devices, or you can program, certain foot switches to say to this one will send a certain CC, send a note, so you can push play C3 with this button. Definitely a little bit more advanced. When you scroll over, you do have a global EQ, and then you have your global settings. Now, I did a whole tutorial about every single global setting in here. I do recommend watching that just because at some point during that video, you're going to go, oh, I'm going to switch that because that'll make my life a lot easier. There are a few things that I do want to just show you really quick for this one, but going over the foot switches, this is where you assign which one you want to be the tap tempo, which one is always going to be tap tempo. I have mine set to Footswitch 5. So this one is always my tap tempo and tuner. That's the way I have it. But if you set it, most of the time it's going to be set to Footswitch 3. Now when you look, Footswitch 3 on every single one is always going to be the tap tuner. So that might be something that you might be interested in setting. So I'm going to put that back. I'm going to set that back so that it acts like Stomp 3. Footswitch 4 acts like Stomp 4, and Footswitch 5. This one is always going to be my tap tuner and tempo. Just something worth knowing. Something else worth knowing, Snapshot Mode is one of the best ways to use the HX Stomp in my opinion. Again, I did a whole tutorial about it, but basically what it does is, actually, let me go back to our good old new 2 preset. And let's say for the first snapshot, I want none of the effects on except for the amp. Right? So I'm going to save this, and now Snapshot 1 is going to have all those off. Snapshot 2 turns all of them on, and then Snapshot 3, I want no gate, EQ, or compression. So now Footswitch 1 has all of them off except for the amp, 2 has them all on, and this one has only a certain ones on. So it's a good way to do, I do it for clean, dirty, and lead and stuff like that. But even beyond that, what you can do is, let's go to this second one right here. And I'll say I want the distortion pedal, I want the gain up. So I'm going to push in and twist. And you'll see it turns white. So now I want it to be at 10 when it's on this preset, when it's on this snapshot. So snapshot 1, the gain drops to 4.2. It jumps up to 10 for this one, and it drops back down to 4.2 for this one. Again, to push in, if I want it to go to 6, for snapshot 3. Now I'm going to save it. So snapshot 1, snapshot 2, snapshot 3. So again, all the pedals are turning on and off, and the parameters are changing. Incredibly valuable. Watch my video on it. I think it's 100% worth knowing how to do snapshot mode. It is the way that I use the HX Stomp. A few more things before we wrap up. So when you're in snapshot mode, if you push 2 buttons together, you can scroll through different presets. So if you do need to change, so this is new 2, and then I can scroll down through the presets or up through the presets. That's another reason why I like to use snapshot mode instead of just using like preset up and down mode, because I can always scroll up and down the presets by pushing the 2 buttons together. Something else with the global assignment. So if you do get one of these extra foot switches, again, I do recommend it. You can say foot switch 4. So again, I've already assigned foot switch 5 to always be the tap tuner. But when you go to the global settings, which again, you push these 2 buttons, page over, global settings, and I'm going to choose the foot switches. Stomp 4, I can set always to preset down. So now it always just scrolls down the presets if I want. And then one more thing, I said I would show you how to use the loop in and out so you can use this with other pedals. So let me just clear out a few of these blocks actually, just for right now. So the way you do that, again, action, move over, clear block. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to send return. Is it a mono or stereo? I'll just do mono for this one. And I'm going to send out the left. So now it's going to come out the left out. And then it'll go, and then I want to do return left, right? So now what it's going to do, it's going to go through here. The signal, your guitar is going to go through all of this. When it hits here, it's going to go out the send left and go into return left, and then continue processing through here. So that's how you can get your Helix to work in whatever order you would like. So if you want to do some processing, you want it to hit the compressor, hit the amp, hit the distortion, and then go out to some other pedals, and then come back in and finish processing into the EQ, the gain, and the hard gate. You have that option as well. And then just one more thing I do want to show you. I'm just going to clear everything out of here just for a second. One of the things you might want to do is I'm going to set an amp. It doesn't really matter which one. I'm going to set up 1 amp right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cab. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set another cab right here. Again, doesn't really matter for the sake of this video. I'm going to do action and move this to path 2. And move the split point over here. So now it's going to go into 1 amp into 2 separate cabinets and then process and go out. That is a cool way to dial in guitar tones as well. You might also notice that I'm not using the standard power adapter for the HX Stomp. This is something called the Ripcord by MyVolts. It's a USB way to power your gear. Super cool. Check out my video on that as well. So that's basically it. I hope that helped you guys out. If you guys made it to the end of this video, please just do me a favor and just hit the thumbs up button. It's annoying that I have to ask for it. Believe me, I absolutely hate it, but it really does help out the YouTube algorithm and recommend this video to more people. If you made it to the end, I'm assuming that you found it helpful. So hitting the thumbs up button supports the work that went into this, because these videos take forever to put together, and it recommends it to more people. So if you found it helpful, there's a possibility that someone else will find it helpful. So hitting the thumbs up button helps me and helps recommend it to other people. So I would appreciate it. I do have a whole playlist about Helix and HX Stomp, tips, tricks, programming, and stuff like that. So be sure to check out some of those videos. I have one about how to program it with Midi, how to send Midi from it, the command center, all sorts of advanced stuff. I have another one about all the global settings, about how to use your HX Stomp. That can be definitely valuable. So check out some of those videos by clicking the link on your screen now. They'll also be down in the description down below. Don't forget to follow me on my social media pages at Scott Yule Music on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you guys again for watching. If you guys found something that really helped you out in this video, leave a comment down below. I'm definitely curious what helped you out the best. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.